Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, now titled Press Pause, where we take a step back and look at tech news and productivity systems and how they impact what we do in our everyday lives. I'm your host, Bill McLean. Let's get into it. I had a video on YouTube that's doing extremely well recently that reminds me that not everybody is tech obsessed and to remember the average user when I'm making videos about tech. This thing is getting crazy engagement and actually really gives me hope for the YouTube community because I've received so many positive comments on a video about how you shouldn't buy the latest iPhone when everybody else has been making videos about all of the new features and how you should be upgrading year over year to the latest and greatest tech. As I unboxed the iPhone 17 Pro for my wife, I actually kind of had this realization that, I don't actually need this new phone. And there's only been a few times in recent history where I can remember this, from the iPhone 14 to 15, I did not upgrade and I opted to wait another year and picked up the 16 Pro. But back when I had the 11 Pro Max and they came out with the 12 Pro and Pro Max, I actually opted for the base model iPhone that year, the regular iPhone 12. And then I think it had something to do with the cameras and the pricing, and didn't really seem like it was worth it to go with the Pro design for more cost. And maybe if I remember right, I don't have it in front of me, but the cameras I think were different on the Pro and the Pro Max, and I didn't want to spend more money, and I didn't want the bigger size anymore. Wanted that smaller phone size. I kind of feel like we're in a similar scenario today where it might make more sense to go with the iPhone 17 base model instead of the iPhone 17 Pro for most people. For the average user that's not going to be using Apple Prolog and Genlock and all of the professional camera features that a 17 Pro or Pro Max gives you, I need to go check out the design of the 17 in the store. Like I said, I've now held the 17 Pro in my hand, so I know what it feels like. And the design's still a little bit wonky to me. It's not my favorite design that Apple has ever done by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the 17 might be the move for the average user. And a couple more updates before we get into the tech news. I've renamed the show here to Press Pause. So I wanted to align a little bit better with, the tech and the productivity stuff that I talk about here on this channel. I think the For Perspective name made a lot of sense if it was an interview type show where I was actually getting perspectives from other people. But the reality of my situation here today is that coordinating getting guests onto the podcast is just too big of a heavy lift at this current state in my life. So I may still bring some guests on here or there. There's nothing that would stop me from doing that, with this name or whatever. But I wanted to realign the show to be more in line with tech and with productivity and the Digital Pulse name that I have my newsletter under. Speaking of my newsletter, which is on Substack, I've started uploading my YouTube videos ad-free on there as a paid subscriber benefit. So at billmclean.substack.com, you can find my videos going forward from YouTube. They're ad-free. There's some limitations. Right now, they only support 2K video, and the bitrate is pretty bad. So not going to say the quality is terrible, but compared to what you can upload and what you can view through YouTube, YouTube's obviously the objectively better platform for viewing videos. But if you didn't want to deal with ads and you're not a YouTube Premium subscriber, then I have that available on my Substack for you to check out. And I'm also running a Black Friday sale on my Apple Notes Essentials Guide, which is on my Gumroad, conveniently billmclean.gumroad.com. And I have a code BF25NOTES that gets you 50% off through Cyber Monday. So 50% off the Apple Notes Essentials Guide. I'll link that in the description down below if you're interested as well. and we'll jump into some of the tech news. So The Verge reported this past week that, actually this looks like 2 weeks ago, but we're getting back into the swing of things here. New season of the show, that Apple requires permissions now before sharing app data with third-party AI. So this is now like an App Store terms and conditions thing that anytime any app is sharing your data with a third-party AI service, that you need to opt in. And this is very much in line with how Apple has touted privacy over the last decade. They definitely seem to be the leader of privacy in the industry, in the tech industry, that's for sure. And AI is no different. If you're using the new features with Apple's Assistant and it wants to send stuff off to ChatGPT, it will prompt you and ask you, are you okay to send this off to ChatGPT? You can, thought you could toggle to disable that, which I thought I did, but I asked a question the other day on a screenshot and it still prompted me to make sure I was okay to send the data to ChatGPT. So I think this is a good thing for most people. I don't know that your average person is as concerned about privacy as maybe, a tech-focused individual is, but Apple keeps this as a selling point with all of their devices. They obviously have an on-device model that you can use, and then they have a private cloud compute model that you can use within Apple Intelligence. Both of them aren't very good if you compare them to, what's out there, the latest and greatest from Anthropic, or OpenAI, or even Perplexity. But if you're privacy focused and you want to keep all of your data on device, you do have that option. And I think that's how Apple's probably going to distinguish themselves moving forward in this AI race that they seem to be behind in, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'm not sure they're actually as far behind as everybody thinks that they are. Which, that goes right into the news broke last week that Apple has a deal with Google now to leverage Google's Gemini to help overhaul Siri. And it was $1 billion a year. Apple's unique, what does this say? Apple's unique advantage as platform owner allows them to pay less than $1 billion per year for Google's large language model. Then Google pays them for search. So it's unclear how exactly this is going to work. If the new Siri is going to be powered by Gemini underneath, if you're going to see Gemini anywhere in the software, if Apple's going to mention the word Gemini at any point in any of their keynotes, that's yet to be shown. But to my previous comment about, is Apple really that far behind? And I mean, from an assistant perspective, I think the answer is yes. But with like a big caveat, because the more I use these tools, especially OpenAI, ChatGPT, maybe not so much Claude, but I mean, sometimes the more you use the tools and interface with them, it does kind of seem like they are getting dumber as time goes along. And I don't know if that is because that they're training off of such a large user base that, the data that they're getting in is from basically the average person that's using it. I'm not sure, but there's been some specific instances recently that I was using Claude and I gave it some input, read through this document and summarize it and tell me some like key topics. And it just got it completely wrong and gave me some titles for a video actually that had nothing to, like, there was nothing in the script that would have allowed it to give me the title that it came up with. It's actually for the iPhone First Thoughts video that I guess is now posted. So the video was, my wife went from the iPhone 14 to the 17 Pro, and it was kind of did a little unboxing and first thoughts, had her write down, what she liked and what she didn't like about the 17 Pro, basically like an average user's experience with a new phone upgrading, 3 generations. That's like a 3-year-old phone. So And Claude came up with some title like what my wife got the 17 Pro and hated it or something like that. And in the video, I never said anything like that. And towards the end of the video, I even said that it was well worth the upgrade. So it's like, Claude, what are you doing? And then, oh yeah, sorry, I'll have to correct myself. You're right. You didn't say anything about that. So I know that. Just weird things like that. But I mean, there's probably people out there that put stuff into these large language models, especially like research and the deep research, and you're asking it a question, and depending on your knowledge level of the topic, if you get something back and you read it, you might just read it and believe it. And it could have made it up out of thin air, right? Hallucinations seem to still be a big problem with all of these AIs. And that's why, I don't know that Apple's as far behind as everybody thinks they are. Like, would it have been cool to have a large language assistant on the iPhone at this point? Maybe, I guess. AI seems to still be a solution in search of a problem for the average user. So much so that Anthropic this past week launched a whole web page filled with use cases for Claude. And so look, there's some helpful things in there, right? It'll give you some ideas on how to use the models. You can then just like click it and jump right into a chat with this information. But to a normal person, I still have no idea how to tell the average person how to use like an AI agent, because I haven't figured it out myself. Like, what is it? I don't even know what do I need an AI agent for? What is it going to do for me? How is it going to save me time? The amount I have to learn, and then how fast these things are iterating is insane. And the perfect example was just a few weeks ago, I finally got access to Perplexity's Comet browser. And then literally a day later, OpenAI released Atlas. Google is cramming Gemini into Chrome basically as fast as they can to rival both of these options. And I still also really haven't found a great use case for using an AI browser over something like Safari. So I'll stick this website from Anthropic in the description down below. I do think it's worth checking out. There's some good stuff in there. I'm being a little bit negative on AI here this week, but the more I use it lately, the less I want to continue to use it. And I don't know if it's the latest model iteration or my prompts haven't changed. The information that I have in there hasn't changed. So I don't know. We'll see. Like, AI is probably not going anywhere, but I read an article on Substack recently where 95% of corporate initiatives with AI have failed. And I think that businesses are feeling the same way as I do, is the stuff is coming out at such a rapid pace that they don't, like big companies especially, don't have time or the resources to react to how fast the models are evolving. So they're still trying to figure out what to do with, ChatGPT 4.0 and 5.1 just launched this week. And for companies with data restrictions and, privacy issues on the corporate side or government restrictions, whatever, the stuff is just moving at such a fast pace, and the investment is like all of these companies are just passing money back and forth between each other. Amazon to NVIDIA, NVIDIA to OpenAI, OpenAI to somebody else. And the AI race is still going, and it's, I don't know what the finish line looks like, but I don't think that chat or chatbot-like interfaces is the killer feature that, will end up being like the internet was. Won't have the impact that the internet had on the world, to put it that way. Apple launched what they're calling digital ID in Apple Wallet, which is pretty cool. You can put your U.S. passport in there apparently and get through TSA for domestic travel with just your Apple Wallet. So this is something I'm going to have to go check out and use for myself. I don't travel all that often, but in the United States, we have the what do they call the driver's licenses with the real ID? They you get the little star on your driver's license, and I don't even remember why we did that, but I have one and I can get through the airport when I need to. So I think it's cool. I wish, I live in Connecticut. I wish they would support the driver's license feature. We don't have that yet here. Hopefully it's coming, and I can almost get rid of my regular wallet and just carry my iPhone around. That would be pretty cool. And what would the show be without some note-taking updates? So recent developments with Craft. I've been kind of dabbling, I guess, with Craft and Notion, confusing myself on whether I want to keep using, Apple Notes or switch to one of these other tools that are slightly more complex, but offer more flexibility, more customization, and a little more visualization. But Craft has another major update. So Victor, one of the co-founders, posted on all of the socials. I'm actually in their Slack community as well. Major update coming at the end of November. In a few weeks, it says. New updates to the assistant, which I hear from some people that are in the beta is really good. You get MCP support, so you'll be able to interface with OpenAI and ChatGPT and Claude, I guess, and an API along with that. There's been some updates to whiteboards. The official Android app is coming out. And then he's doing a little bit of teasing here for 2026, which is really nice. I think overall my impressions of Craft so far is that it's a really great app, but it doesn't feel finished at its current state. So 2026, voice plus Apple Watch. So you'll be able to take voice notes on your watch into Craft. They're calling this Assistant version 2, so an AI assistant that can more deeply look at what you have inside of your Craft. Kanban in collections is something that I requested, so that'll make it more like a Notion, kind of like a Notion page where you can view it as a board view as well and move things through the different slots. I like that a lot. And OCR support, so you can then search, if you scan in a document, you can search within that document or within pictures and whatever. And maybe the most important thing is doing all this without increasing prices, is what Victor said. And I'll link the page in the description as well, so you can go check that out. There's a full details page that he creates. And of course, one of the features or functionalities with Craft is that you can publish to the internet. So these pages and the announcements and the what's new with Craft are all made in Craft and then pushed to the internet, which is a pretty cool feature. I don't necessarily have a use case for that yet, but the Basic AF show that I was a guest on uses Craft to interface for their show documents. So it was real easy to get that shared with me, add some feedback so we could kind of align on what we were going to talk about on the show. And really efficient, just really efficient, and a beautiful document. So, I can blame Tom Anderson of the Basic AF show for getting me into Craft and adding to my confusion on whether or not I want to use Craft going forward. There's a couple bugs with the Readwise integration at this point that I know they're working on because there's a bug request feature in their Slack. So I just chat it up. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what's going on. Yep, we're aware. We're working on it. That kind of stuff is cool. I mean, the Craft team is very active in that Slack community, and especially with beta participants, helping them develop the app to make it into, I think it seems like in 2026, they're on a path to really be a Notion competitor. Right now, it would work. I think it's a less annoying Notion. It's easier easier to use. There's a couple of visual things that I like in Notion a little bit better. And of course, there's quirks with any notes apps that you use, but you'd get used to that over time. And Craft added tasks and a whole bunch of other things throughout 2025 to really be, top 3 personal knowledge management apps. I don't know, Apple Notes is up there for me. Notion's up there for me. I'm a little bit sour on Obsidian at this point. I don't know. I used it for quite a while, but some of the features like the bases, I just don't understand. And every time I go and try to use Obsidian, I remember why I stopped using it in the first place. It's just a little bit too complex and there's too much to customize in order to get it to work the way that I want it to work. So I think that's what we've got for now. Stay tuned for the App of the Year video in December. I've been doing App of the Month all year long and actually a little bit over a year. I started that in October of 2024. So we're going to do an App of the Year awards here in December 2025 and give you some honorable mentions and do some, most improved apps as well. And of course, you can find the rest of my tech videos on YouTube. Tech and productivity systems help you do more of what matters most in your life. And I'm on Substack at billmclean.substack.com with a weekly newsletter called The Digital Pulse and bi-weekly insights into all of the things that I'm listening to and watching via my Readwise highlights. And you can follow along on Threads if you want as well, which is where a majority of my videos start as ideas. And I kind of gauge the feedback, like the Threads algorithm a lot right now. So these things start as text posts, and you can deal with all my other random ramblings about tech and productivity, the tech and productivity spaces on Threads as well. And as always, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Later.